So if you're up to date, we've managed to pull off 2 fretless instruments that are pretty unique. They each have their own conversion videos and rundowns you can check out in the description, but to save time, we've basically got a kind of 6-string bass and 4-string guitar. I brought up the difficulties someone who isn't familiar with fretless instruments might perceive during both of these, someone like I was, and came to the kind of existential realism that frets are the autotune of stringed instruments. Obviously, autotune gets a bad rap, as if people that use it are low-skilled or lazy. But you wouldn't think that of some popular guitarists and bassists out there with frets on their instruments. Loading up the plugin to see if I can cheat my way into sounding on point with my fingerings and actually in tune. Are there any other advantages to using this effect you don't really see on guitars and basses we could find? And probably more importantly, is this something we're gonna have to start lying about not using, like every vocalist ever recorded nowadays? This is coming from Said Too Much. Obviously, we can start by just trying to make me sound like the most precise fretless instrument player ever. Pretty nice, but in reality, we don't even have to stick to the chromatic scale here. Want to play in a particular key? Alright, just set it and play anywhere on the fretboard you can think of. Hell, we could do this key-changing idea even if we had frets too then, right? Like in a project with the 6-string bass before its fretless conversion even? Yeah, so that's way more of a questionable use, but I couldn't help but revisiting that song called Memory off the Said Too Much Experimental Instrumentals Volume 2 album again, which was also used not too long ago just to see how playing those riffs after its fretless conversion fared, referencing the conclusion from that video. The real difference to me came from how much more difficult it was to play chords without the frets. Fretless instruments just seem more suited for moving bass lines and maybe that one-finger power chord. It's just pretty difficult to keep multiple fingers perfectly next to each other without relying on the auto-tune effect of the frets. So with better and better polyphonic software coming out, auto-tune could make this almost a non-issue again. For a more modest approach to this effect though, you can use it just to make sure you're staying in tune or have correct intonation. And I found that mixing the dry and wet signals together gives an interesting chorus effect controlled by your loose fingering or bends directly. Which brings up the major disadvantage I can think of, losing those techniques along with those fretless kind of portamento slides. But we can turn the effect on and off, and we still haven't considered what manipulating the retune speed could do as well. So what do y'all think? Is this something you'd like on a pedal board for your fretless instruments, or should we just stay away from this taboo effect? I can find some vocal-oriented effects processors out there, and some of them are in pedal form, so I was somewhat surprised that I couldn't find a lot of guitarists or bassists experimenting with this effect out there when I was doing my research. I found a couple of other YouTubers trying to emulate something Joe Satriani tried on fretted guitars, but I think it might have more benefit in this fretless application. It kind of reminds me of a feature on this Korg NanoPad MIDI instrument. Using the X and Y pad, you can trigger random notes in a handful of scales to choose from by sliding or tapping randomly, kind of like fretting randomly on a single string. Some of you may be thinking this specific technique is the lazy or unskilled crutch vocalists lean on, but maybe it makes fretless instruments look more approachable? Kind of like how my frustrations made me think of this in the first place? I mean, what's the non-metaphorical use of crutches anyways? Something to help you build strength one step at a time until you maybe no longer need them? At best, it could be a tool for self-correcting and learning muscle memory, or at worst, it could be a tool to totally pervert key changes. And any other ways you can use this certainly polarizing tool, let me know in the comments what you all think. But now though, enough said. For early video access, raw instrument tracks, and more exclusives, find our community on Patreon and consider adding your support.
Said too much.